The morning sun stretched across the small town of Ijebu-Ode, where church bells mingled with the sounds of bustling streets. Inside Father Ayo's modest compound, the atmosphere was heavy. Kunle, normally the heart of his family, stood with a heavy heart. His eyes were tired from lack of sleep. "Ah, but Kunle," his father Babatunde said sternly, "how can they not see what you've been through?" "I don't know, Baba," Kunle replied, his voice like crushed paper. "After the company's collapse, everything went upside down. They let me go without warning." "And your so-called friend who promised to help?" Babatunde pressed on. "He vanished like smoke," Kunle said, shaking his head. Kunle walked through the town, his mind clouded with unanswered questions. He passed familiar faces. Some greeted him, but others whispered behind his back. "Ain, isn't that Kunle? The one who walks about without work?" one trader muttered. Those words stung sharper than thorns. Kunle pretended he didn't hear, but his shoulders drooped a little more. Inside Ijebu-Ode's bustling market, Kunle approached his cousin, Femi, who ran a popular food stall. "Femi, I need a job. Any job." Kunle's voice was low, almost desperate. Femi hesitated, glancing around as if avoiding something. "Kunle, things are tight. No space here." The dismissal was polite but definitive. Kunle nodded, managing a weak smile. "I understand." Back at the church, where Kunle had taken refuge for weeks, he sat silently on a bench, eyes unfocused. The weight of uncertainty gnawed at his soul. His stomach growled, but the hunger for answers was more persistent. He replayed his life in his mind, trying to pinpoint where things went wrong. His brother, Tayo, had warned him once before, "Be careful with these deals, Kunle." Kunle had laughed it off. "Don't worry, Tayo, it's a sure thing." Later in the church, a group of worshippers gathered around Father Ayo for morning prayers. Kunle watched from his corner, half listening to the murmured hymns and blessings. Then over the quiet room, Father Ayo's voice rose, steady and clear. "Lord, guide our brother Kunle on his path. Show him mercy and light his way. Let his enemies be revealed, and may justice reign." Heads turned toward Kunle. His heart skipped. Why mention him? What did Father Ayo know? The service ended, but Kunle couldn't shake off the feeling that Father Ayo's prayer carried a hidden message. As people trickled out of the church, he approached the priest with heavy steps. "Father," Kunle began, "why did you mention me specifically?" Father Ayo looked up from his Bible, wise eyes meeting Kunle's. "Sometimes, even silence speaks, my son. You must listen to what's not being said." His cryptic words left Kunle more restless. The following evening, Kunle walked through the neighborhood, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Under the cloak of night, whispers carried through open windows, only fueling his growing anxiety. From a nearby balcony, he overheard two women talking. "Kunle was always such a hard worker. Shame about the rumors." Rumors? The seeds of doubt planted, Kunle's mind raced, trying to untangle the half-formed suspicions. The next day, Kunle stopped by Tayo's shop, hoping for some clarity. Tayo looked up from fixing a bicycle, oil-stained hands pausing mid-motion. "You know anything about the rumors going around?" Kunle asked. Tayo frowned, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I've heard bits. Someone said you've been dishonest in your dealing with the company." Kunle's face fell, hot anger bubbling beneath his skin. "I didn't do anything wrong," he shouted, his voice echoing through the shop, causing customers to turn and look. Kunle trudged back to the church, where he found Father Ayo sitting outside, lost in thought. Kunle joined him quietly. "Father," Kunle said after a long pause, "I think someone is spreading lies about me." Father Ayo sighed deeply. "I know people talk, but truth has a way of revealing itself, son. You must hold on to your dignity." Kunle nodded, though the path seemed more obscured than ever. But as Kunle lay on the church bench that night, a strange thought crept into his mind. What if it wasn't just fate? What if someone wanted him out of the way? He decided to visit the old company office the next day to see if he could glean some truths before it became too late. Kunle's determination twinkled faintly, like the single star in a cloudy night. He needed to unravel this mystery. Kunle entered the quiet office, dusty from lack of use. The receptionist, an old woman with a kind face, looked up surprised. "Ah, Kunle, we didn't expect to see you back here." She smiled, but there was something unnerving about it. "I need to check some old accounts. he said, trying to sound casual. As he searched through scribbled notes and financial logs, a name popped out. Kunle's breath caught. The same name that Tayo had mentioned, Abiola, his supposed company friend. Suddenly, Abiola entered the office, surprise flashing over his face before quickly masking it with a grin. "What brings you here, Kunle?" Abiola asked, voice too cheerful, too confident. "I was just checking something," Kunle replied, not meeting his eyes. Abiola walked closer. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he said with a smirk. It was then Kunle knew. Abiola had been part of the betrayal. Back at the church, Kunle paced back and forth, thoughts swirling like a storm. He needed evidence, proof that Abiola had been pulling strings behind the curtain. But who would believe him when all he had were suspicions? He sat on his usual bench, head in hands, when suddenly an idea struck him. The church, his only refuge. Maybe it wasn't just a haven, but a place where he could uncover secrets hidden in plain sight. Taking a long breath, Kunle approached Father Ayo later that evening. "Father," Kunle began, "can the church help me? Not with money, but with connections. I need truth to come out." Father Ayo looked at him for a moment before nodding. "We will stand by you as you search for justice." Together, they plotted a plan to gather the congregation, to spread the real story, and to bring the culprits into the light. The morning of the gathering, as Kunle prepared himself, the church bell tolled ominously. When he stepped into the church, ready to face the community, to reveal what he knew, he saw someone unexpected. Standing at the altar was Abiola, calm, composed, and preparing to speak. Behind him, a large crowd had already gathered, anticipating the testimony. As Kunle stepped forward, every eye turned toward him. Would he be able to expose the truth, face his enemy, and reclaim his lost honor? His heart pounded, balancing on the precipice of this moment of reckoning. As Abiola spoke, his words heavy with false humility, the congregation listened intently, unaware of the deceit cloaked in his speech. Kunle stood at the back, heart pounding, anger simmering beneath his skin. "Brothers and sisters," Abiola said, "we must support one another, especially in times of need." Kunle's patience snapped. "Enough!" he yelled, his voice cutting through the room like a knife. "You're no friend, Abiola. You're a traitor!" The crowd turned, murmurs growing louder. Abiola's smile faltered but quickly recovered. "Kunle, my friend, why such false accusations?" Kunle stepped forward, determination in his stride. "You pretended to be my ally all this time, but it was your hand behind the betrayal." Gasps echoed through the church. Father Ayo glanced nervously at the tension rising, ready to intervene if needed. Abiola's mask slipped, a hint of panic flashing in his eyes before responding coolly. "This is baseless. No, Abiola, I've seen the accounts. You framed me to take my job." Kunle replied, voice steadied by truth. The congregation, now buzzing with disbelief, looked on. Abiola's allies in the crowd shifted uneasily, sensing the balance of power tipping. "Kunle, stop this madness!" Abiola hissed, stepping down from the altar, anger finally cracking through his calm veneer. "I will not stop until the truth is known," Kunle declared, his voice firm as ever. In response, Abiola chuckled darkly. "You have no proof, Kunle." At that moment, Tayo entered the church, panting, holding a small stack of papers. "Here!" Tayo shouted, thrusting them into the air. "Proof of Abiola's betrayal! Records of false transactions!" The room went silent, every eye fixed on Tayo. Kunle held his breath as Tayo handed the papers to Father Ayo. "This is absurd!" Abiola sputtered, trying to laugh it off, but the fear was apparent in his eyes now. Father Ayo scanned the documents, his face growing stern. "These allegations are serious, Abiola. What do you have to say?" Caught off guard, Abiola hesitated before sneering. "This proves nothing. It's all deceit." Amidst this, murmurs of rising anger and judgment swept the crowd. Some began standing, clearly siding with Kunle. The tension reached its peak, a crescendo of anger and betrayal filling the holy space. Just then, an unexpected voice pierced through. "Ebami Lori," cried Mummy Ayinka, an elderly woman respected in the community. "Let us not destroy ourselves with hate." Her words silenced the room. She stepped forward, frail but dignified. "Look at us, dividing in anger." Kunle bowed his head, feeling the weight of his actions for the first time. His anger, once his compass, wavered under the sudden realization. Mummy Ayinka continued. I have lived long enough to see many fights, but only God's truth remains. Can we not pray before we unravel our humanity? Father Io nodded and with a gentle gesture led the congregation into prayer, asking for wisdom and peace. Eyes closed, Kunle's mind replayed the betrayal, yet the blanket of prayer washed over him. Then a whisper of scripture from Matthew stirred within. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. A pang of guilt shot through him. As they opened their eyes, something had shifted. Kunle glanced at Abiola, seeing not just an enemy, but a reflection of humanity's weakness. Abiola, too, seemed shaken, the facade of control crumbling, shame coloring his cheeks. Kunle, Father Ao spoke softly. What does your heart tell you? Kunle hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. Abiola, despite everything, I pray you find peace. I can't hold this anger anymore. It wasn't what anyone expected, least of all himself. A deep silence followed, charged with emotion. Tayo looked at Kunle, eyes wide with surprise, but respect grew there too. Abiola stood frozen, the weight of Kunle's words breaking his resolve. For a moment, the facade of defiance wavered. I'm sorry, Kunle, Abiola mumbled, voice hoarse and eyes downcast. I don't know how I got here. The congregation watched, breathless, as sincerity seeped into Abiola's voice. Kunle nodded, the warmth of forgiveness slowly soothing his anger. It's not easy to heal, but we can try, he said, offering his hand. Abiola hesitated, then took it, the air heavy with unspoken promises and the possibility of redemption. A sigh of relief rippled through the onlookers, a community slowly finding its way back to trust. Mummy Ayinka's eyes gleamed with unshed tears. We have witnessed a miracle of the heart, she whispered. May God guide us all now towards truth and compassion. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Father Ao approached Kunle and placed a hand on his shoulder. You chose a difficult path, Kunle, but Christ's forgiveness is powerful. Kunle nodded, the burden of recent months dissipating, understanding that the journey ahead was still long, but now lined with hope. As the church doors closed behind him, Kunle lingered for a moment, casting a final glance at the altar bathed in gentle light. A sense of closure settled in, not perfect but true. His heart whispered a prayer of gratitude for the redemption that began not in actions of revenge, but in the grace found through faith. This new beginning rested firmly in God's hands.
Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.